Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for being here. I know this is a really tough time right now, and we are still going to power forward and have a good time today. You might notice things are a little bit different, though. I've got my lights turned off. I'm also doing something different with the stream today, with the chat today. So I do want to mention that I really appreciate all your super chats and donations, and it's wonderful. But today, I cannot accept those. I do not need those today. There are a lot of other people who need those. Need that a lot more than me today. So, what we're going to do today instead is I'm going to actually anything that you donate today, super chat or super stickers, I'm actually going to match that donation, and my employer Okta is going to match that as well, and we're going to triple match every donation that you give today. So that's something that we can do today, and while we can still have a good time here. So that's about what I'm going to get into on the subject of current events, but we are here to talk about live streaming, the ATEM Mini, all things that are live streaming, and I have a few extra things that I brought today with me to try out as well. So please do consider super chat donation, or you can donate directly, and again, I will match those as well. So that said, let's see who is joining us from the chat. I see we have some people in here already. So I'm going to put up that map. I did that the wrong way. Let's go take a look at the map. We've got people from, oh, I can't retroactively show your greetings, sorry. But we've got Zach from West Palm Beach, Cam from Australia, Benyam from Toronto, Agile Gadgets from Texas, Eyup from Istanbul, Sebastian from Germany, Sam from Taipei, and a whole bunch more folks. Awesome! Thank you so much for joining today. This is going to be a great stream, a great fun time that we're going to have while we can from our homes here. Oh, hi from Argentina. That's awesome. I think you might be one of the first folks I've seen from that far down south. Wonderful. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So first things first, if you do have a question, please make sure to mention my name in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on the chat, and it's a lot easier for me to see it if it's highlighted in orange. When you mention somebody's name, it highlights it in orange for them. So if you do have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat and highlight orange, and that will make sure that I see it. So, and oh, and look at that. We have our first super chat. Let me make sure my lights are turned on so that they change colors too. This is from Serge. Let me see if this is going to show up on the screen. And nope, sorry, I can't make that one show up on the screen because it's a sticker. But thank you so much, Serge. That's $10. So again, that is now $30 donated. So thank you for that. Let's take a look at the chat and see what's going on here. We've got a first question. Can you chain link ATEM Minis? So you technically have 7 video sources. You, in fact, definitely can, and that's actually what I'm doing right now. So what I've got here is, let me switch over to my desk shot. I've got my one that's streaming live here, and then this is my sort of test one, which I can use to then show different things on the screen. This one is running into input 4 of that one. So if I show you the multi-view up here, you can see, let me switch over this one to multi-view. This is my main stream right now. And then we've also got, if I switched the HDMI out of the main switcher to input 4, because you can like choose what goes out. I can choose, my camera 1, my camera 2, or I can switch over to the other ATEM Mini, which is then showing you, not on the screen, showing me on the screen, the other ATEM Mini. So this is now, you can see, because it's got test in the corner. It's my other ATEM Mini, and as I switch inputs over here, you can see it changes on my screen. So yeah, I've essentially got 7 inputs. The way I actually have it wired up though is, the way I have it wired up right now is that I actually have my camera, this camera and that camera are actually split and they feed into both. And that way I can actually give you, that means I can use this camera on the backup switcher without having to have another camera around. So that makes it a lot easier for me to deal with and test things out. It also means that, like, because they're chained, I can actually show you the multi-view of the other switcher. So if I go over to this, now you're actually seeing the multi-view of the other switcher. So you can see I've got my 2 cameras that are split into both switchers, but then I've got my computer over here doing the chat, and I'm actually not using the 4th input on the backup switcher here. And then that graphic just so I can identify it. So yeah, you totally can, and that is a great question. So we are going to go back to the chat. Oh, Chad says, just received the Mini Pro this week. Awesome, congrats. I know it takes a while to get them, but you know, it is worth it, and it's a lot of fun once you have it. Candlelight Production says, I want to output HDMI to ULive for bonded cellular, but then I wonder how will I see my multi-view? Yeah, so that's one of the limits of the ATEM Mini, is that there's one HDMI port, which means you can either choose that output is going to be multi-view or program out or one of the other sources, like I was just showing you. But that is the limit. You can't have multi-view and then also output the program over HDMI. That's one of the reasons that the Pro is so nice, because the Pro has other ways to get the video out. There's the USB-C, there is the USB-C webcam, there is also, you know, streaming, so you can stream directly from the Pro. If you do want to do a bonded connection with the ATEM Mini Pro, the best way is going to be to sort of do that separately, just as a network device. I don't know off the top of my head what devices can do that, but there are definitely devices that just act as redundant network routers, basically, where you plug in 2 uplinks and then they provide an Ethernet connection. You would plug that into the ATEM Mini Pro, and then it can stream over your bonded connection. So hopefully that helps. Speaking of which, regarding internet connections at on-location live streams, can you recommend a good travel router? What if they don't have a hardline 4G or LTE modems that could work? Thanks so much. We actually talked about this on the stream last week, so there's some good notes in there, and I'm not going to recap that too much. So definitely go take a look at last week's, because we did a deep dive and actually tested it out, and I streamed from, I did like a secondary stream from my cell phone's tethered connection. And I don't think I brought it with me today, but I will drop a link in the chat to the router that I really like. If I remember what it's called. It's a little tiny router. It's got like 3 Ethernet ports, and it can actually then get its internet connection a few different ways. So that is going to be my favorite travel router, dropping that in the chat for you. So it can do that a couple of different, it can get its internet connection from a few different sources. You can plug in an internet line to it, which is obviously the best. It can actually join a Wi-Fi hotspot as well, or you can plug in a USB modem or even your cell phone, and it can use that connection as the internet connection. I don't think it does bonding, so it's going to just choose one or the other. But it is a really fantastic device, and it's very affordable for what it does. Cool. So yeah, for those of you in the chat who are saying that you're still waiting, I did a video, I think it was 2 weeks ago. It should be pretty still high up on my list of videos. How to buy an ATEM Mini Pro. Check that out, because there are other ways to get one than going to the biggest store you can think of. So let's see, what are we doing? Where are we on the chat? Cam says, can you explain the different ways to get a multi-view along with program out to a large screen for the audience? Yeah, that's a tricky one, because again, there's only one HDMI. Basically, you're stuck with either multi-view or your program out. So if you want to have a large screen, you're going to have to do that like other ways. If it has to be real time, that's going to be really tricky. And honestly, I would probably just recommend bumping up to the next model of ATEM and dealing with it, because the next model up to ATEM Television Studio, that has, first of all, 8 inputs, SDI and HDMI. SDI means you can do much longer cable runs and use fancier cameras. And then it has multiple outputs. So it has a multi-view out, it has a program out, it also has like an aux out, which you can assign to different things. So that's really a lot better. And that's what I've been using when I was filming conferences, when conferences were happening. I could feed the projector. So what I would do is I would actually have the speaker's computer running into my switcher, not directly to the projector. So the presenter's laptop would be running on a really long wire back to me, so that I would get the feed in the switcher, and then I would actually choose what to show on the projector. So I could switch between their computer or like a graphic of the conference logo or the sponsors or my own video loops feeding the projector, which also means it's really nice because you don't end up with like when someone goes and stands up and plugs in their laptop, the weird flicker on the screen, because I just like switch to their slides as soon as their computer is synced up. So you can't really do it with the ATEM Mini Pro. It's not really meant for that kind of environment. It's just a lot more limited. And if you do need to do that with the ATEM Mini Pro, you're going to end up like going through a lot of hoops, let's say, to make that actually work. Oh yeah, if you don't need it to be real time, I guess you do have more options, because you could use the streaming output to like a separate computer that can receive that stream and then display it on the screen. It'll be delayed, but it'll work. You can also use the USB webcam out for that as well, to a separate computer, which would be a lot less delay. It would probably be fine actually. But that means like a separate computer. And again, like at the point that you're starting to add that many separate computers and devices, it might be worth looking at a more serious solution for that kind of environment. Okay. Oh, Lorenzo says, which software do you use to show comments? This is actually a totally custom hack of like CSS. I've actually just got the YouTube live chat window pulled up on this laptop here. Let me just switch to that. It looks like this. And this is like literally the live chat web page. This is my browser up here. And I've got custom CSS loaded in here to just style it, and some JavaScript that does the animations and stuff. I did a show about that as well, so go take a look at. I think it's in the title is showing comments. Let's see, and that's the same question as before. What's the solution for doing iMag image magnification when you're trying to use ATEM Mini Pro? That is yeah. So we just talked about that. I don't really do it because, one, I haven't had a chance to be in that kind of environment since having the ATEM Mini Pro, since I've been not traveling and not doing events. But I don't think I would use it for that. Okay, so here's a good one. What's your solution? What's your suggestion as an alternative to the HyperDeck to playback video media? And that's actually one of the things I brought with me today. So the HyperDeck I took a look at in one of the shows and sort of talked about how it works. And I love it. It's great. It is expensive, but it does work really well. One of the best parts about it is that it actually integrates directly with the ATEM Mini, so that you can actually, when you switch to its input on the device, the thing starts playing immediately. So you can do perfectly timed cues. One of the downsides is that it's actually very loud. The fans in it are very loud. I'm actually going to replace the fans in mine to see if that helps. But it is still very expensive, and it's really meant to be like in a rack of gear. It looks like I've got it on the. Oh my gosh, that wasn't good. Okay, I've got it on the desk here. So this is what it looks like. And sorry, my lighting in here is not great. Yeah, this is, it's great. But one of the other options is this thing. And this I've got plugged in. It takes an SD card or a USB sticks. And all this does is it just plays back video files. So that thing is super cool. Let me actually drop a link to that in the chat so that you can take a look at it. Where I put the link. That thing is called the Mica Spec. And this is the link. But the way that works is it's super simple. It's just like a little media player. It has a lot of problems of its own. And let's talk about when I would use it versus not. So let me first plug it in so we can actually see it. And I'm going to plug it into the fourth input on my test switcher. So if I go look at, if I go show you, let's see, I'm actually going to switch to, nope, I'm going to switch to the multi-view. There we go. So you are seeing the multi-view of the test switcher, and input 4 now is playing this video file off this little device. And the reason that this is super interesting is it has a couple of different modes. So it can play videos or photos. And let me get my other camera up there. There we go. And it has this little remote. So what I've done is I've actually put it into this mode where it plays, when it boots up, it auto plays videos. So what I've been using this for is at conferences, I will like make a video file ahead of time with all of the sponsor logos and like a schedule on the page. And so what that, then I just like have it in my box permanently as one of the inputs into the switcher, which means I can at any point switch that for the live feed or on the projector in the venue. It's also for like, you can also use it for installations where you just want to show something on a screen and you don't want to dedicate a computer to that. You just plug in the little thing into a projector or a TV, and it's now, you know, on your giant screen in the venue. So I've got this little graphic loaded in, just this very slow moving animation with this indie webcam logo. And what I do want to show you though is sort of why it's kind of weird and why I may not recommend it for every situation. It's good at doing these sort of slow, just ambient things that you want to just have ready at any time. It's not super great at very closely timed things. One, it doesn't integrate at all with the ATEM Mini, and it doesn't have any control other than this remote. So you have to like manually start and stop. But here's where it gets really weird. So let me make that one bigger. Here, I'll put it over here. I'm going to stop playing the video and we're gonna get into its little menu system. So it's this little like, I don't know what you call it. It's like a smart TV without the TV, right? It's like a little player, and it's got like a settings menu, and you can choose all sorts of stuff in there. Oh, it's somehow set to 720p. I thought it was at 1080. Let's switch it over to 1080. Actually, you know what? I don't care. We're not doing anything that requires 1080. If there were photos, you could load up photos. There are no photos on this SD card. But so you can kind of get the idea, right? This is like a little clunky and not easy to navigate. So if you wanted to like choose a different video file, you have to go navigate through this menu in order to play something. So not great for like very, you know, carefully timed things, but it is great for just showing sort of ambient loops. So, you know, I do like it for that. Oh, I just saw can't do that. Back to here. So yeah, that is one option, and it's super cheap. I do recommend it for that. From Jason, got a super chat. Thank you so much. And again, we are donating all the super chats today, and I and my employer are matching them. So every super chat you give today is actually worth 3 times the donations to these organizations below. So thank you for that. If you can't do super chat for some reason, I saw somebody was having trouble with super chat because of currency conversions. If you do have a way to donate directly to these organizations, you can just search for them and I think I forgot to put the links, but I put their names in the description. Search for them and then just tweet me. I put my Twitter in the description as well, and I will make sure to match that as well. Cool. So where were we on the chat? So yeah, the HDMI player, that is I think that's a great option for certain kinds of playback. Now, if you do need the very carefully timed things, the HyperDeck is great for that. Someone is working on a software for a Raspberry Pi that can sort of emulate a HyperDeck. So I'm really curious to try that out, and I will let you know when I do. And that will be another great option because the ATEM Mini will think it's a HyperDeck, and it'll just be a lot cheaper than a HyperDeck. So I think that'll be great. So looking forward to that as well. And then what else? There's another one. Where's my iPad? I forgot an iPad. There it is. And I think I forgot another HDMI adapter. We'll see if I can, maybe I'll just show you on the screen. No, it would be nice to plug it in, but there's an iPad app that actually does this as well. So let me switch over to my other view here. Okay. So this iPad app, let's see if you can see that. It's called iMix 16 Pro. It's got 16 buttons, and you can load in video clips into it. And then when you tap it, it'll just start playing. And this is just a little preview of what the video is, but it actually outputs it over the HDMI port if you have an HDMI converter. And I don't know where my HDMI converter, my extra one, went. And I don't want to unplug my laptop for that. So, but yeah, this thing is super cool too. I'm probably going to actually do a proper video on these because I can talk more coherently when I can actually get a chance to edit the words that I say that are coming out of my mouth. And I think there's a lot of good options for this. And this is pretty solid. One of the really cool things about this is that if you do have it on your Wi-Fi, you can actually control it not via the ATEM Mini directly, but it does respond to OSC commands, which means you can integrate it with the Stream Deck. The Elgato Stream Deck, which is the little buttons that I have over here, which I'm not really using yet. And that's super cool too, because then you can make all your macros and controls in the Stream Deck, and then they can send OSC commands as well to then queue up the videos. So there's a lot of stuff you can go into there, and but that really deserves a proper video. So that's on my list. We'll see when I can get to it. Let me drop the name of that. It's called iMix 16, and they have a couple of different versions with different like numbers of inputs. And I just see that my background changed again. Thank you for the super chat. So let's go take a look at that. Thank you, Eric, or Ian. I don't know why I said Eric. Thank you for the super chat. And again, I'm donating that super chat, and I'm matching it, and my employer is matching that as well. So that is going a long way towards good causes. So I do keep my live streams posted or around afterwards. I was considering not doing it, but I got a lot of feedback that people thought it was helpful. So I'll leave it up if you do want to go back and watch it. Just make sure that you actually do go back and watch it later, because if my worry with leaving the live streams up was that they were going to get no views and sort of bring the channel average down, and then that like affects the algorithm and blah blah blah. So they've been doing okay, so I'm happy to leave them up. Cool. So where were we? Thank you for the super chat, Ian. Okay. Scrolling back up to the comments here, we were talking about the HDMI players. Yeah, I think I covered the three that I've had a chance to use myself. If you do know of any other options, feel free to leave a comment later. Here's a question from Serge. I've been trying to use the downstream keyer workaround for the overlays, but I can't seem to get rid of a 1 to 2 pixel black border around the overlay. That's interesting. So I have noticed it's kind of hard to get this right sometimes, and it also depends on how you've created the graphics. So let me see if people in the chat are saying that there's a latency with the audio and video. I'm gonna check on my end. No, sounds fine here. So I'm gonna say that this is probably actually a YouTube glitch right now. I've been seeing a lot of people having issues with streams on YouTube over the last week or so. I'm assuming there's just a ton of traffic right now. Maybe try refreshing and that might sync it up again. But it's probably just in the particular stream and encoding that it's somewhere in the chain that's not here. And other people are having no delays on their end. So usually just refresh or change the video size. That can help too. Cool. So yeah, so the downstream keyer with the black border. If you are making your graphics in like Photoshop or something, here I can actually just show you what I've got here. Let me do this. And I can try it by importing it to my test keyer, my test stream. So I'm going to give you a view of my laptop and myself. So this is the graphic that I've been putting in the corner, and what I can demonstrate this by just like adding a silly new thing on top. Let me just add like a white rectangle, except that I'm going to then also give it a fade. So this will demonstrate the problem nicely. So I've got this like gradient, right? If I export this as a ping image with transparency, you would think it would work. But there is a problem, which is I'm guessing is the problem that you're having. So let me go export this image. Okay. And then I will go over to the ATEM software. And let me make sure I'm on the test one. Which one am I on? Test. Okay. Yeah. So if I go into my downloads folder and drag that image into slot number 2, and then let's see. You were looking at, so down in this where it says ATEM and it's red. What am I looking at here? I'm looking at. I need to show you the multi-view, but now it's too small for you to see it. And my computer's not there. I apparently don't have this routed quite right. I don't have this quite set up right to show you. Okay, so what have I got? I've got, let me just switch over to the, so you can see the multi-view of the test switcher, okay? Then we're going to load that graphic into the player. So now you can see it down there. And yeah, okay, so you can see that there's a problem. And then if I like use this as the downstream keyer, let me get rid of that so it's not distracting. If I use the downstream keyer, which I'm sorry, you can't see, except it's kind of up in my computer there. I'm gonna fill it with the media player. And this is the secret here, this premultiplied key button. If I show that to you, here, okay, we can see something is very wrong. This did not work because I checked premultiplied key and it was not a premultiplied graphic. If I turn that off, it's better, but here's the problem. Remember how I had that gradient that was nice, soft gradient? And it's kind of turned into I don't have a way to point. Oh yeah, I do. I can point on the screen. See how it's turned into just a very short, it's like solid white and then transparent, whereas it was actually a nice fine gradient. That's because this was not uploaded as a premultiplied graphic. And depending on where I change the clip, it'll choose which part of the transparency was there, right? So that's clearly not what we want. And then, if I change the gain, it changes how much of it. And this one happens to be working pretty well because it's just white, but you can kind of see that the little party poppers are getting a little bit translucent now as I go down. So this is not the right way to do it. Instead, if you use Photoshop and export it directly or export as the actual file format that this is, which I forget the extension. But if you export it directly to the switcher, we can export it to number 3. And then you make sure premultiply alpha is set. Then this will look a lot different. So let's go back over to the switcher and make sure that it is loaded. This should, yeah. So now see how the graphic has, black where the transparent parts were. And now this should look much better as soon as I check premultiplied key. And there goes the garbage truck again. So that's the trick. So if you're getting a black border around edges, it's probably because of that. And then this, if you upload a graphic with proper transparency with from Photoshop using the premultiplied key option, you will get the perfect transparent borders around all the graphics. So sorry, that was a lot of hopefully that was useful. Let's go back to here and take a look at the chat again, because I always get nervous when I'm not looking at the chat. I could just be offline for all I know. Cool. Okay. Oh, Clifford says, good to see another stream. I see we still have that white line under the message overlay. Yeah, apparently I can't actually end up fixing this because I'm just not saving it to the right spot or something. The other problem is that on the multi-view monitor, there's this little gray border. Let me switch over to that again. So if you look at the multi-view, there's this little gray border which actually covers up that white line, so I can't see it, which is why it's on there. And I have to actually monitor the program feed out in a separate monitor in order to see it, because it actually covers it up. Actually, now that I'm thinking about that, I wonder if there's an option for that in the multi-view to turn on or off borders, because sometimes there are. I can turn on audio meters. I can turn on those, but I don't see a way to choose border color or size. Okay, good to know. That is why the message that's why there's a white underline. What I would have to do is fix my macro to fix the position of the because the white line is actually it's like literally this little, you can see my cursor, it's that. So I just need to scoot it down a little bit. Anyway, I will fix that at some point. Not today, because yeah. Anyway, where were we? We were, Marcelo says, what's the best way to bring in Twitch message boxes or chats and graphics if we're using the ATEM Mini hardware encoding? So that's what I'm doing now. And the way I've got it set up is I'm using this custom CSS thing, which is definitely a hack. And you could make an equivalent hack probably for Twitch, but it may or may not work very well. I haven't tried it on Twitch. The better option is to use software that actually properly interfaces with those APIs to pull in the chat messages and then bring it in via one of the HDMI inputs. That's a much safer solution. And there's a handful of those things. So you can do it in OBS, you can do it in Ecamm Live. I know there's other apps that can do it as well. And the concept there though is that you would pull up you would make like a dedicated computer to this, make a full screen version of like just a either black or like a green background, and then put that chat somewhere on the screen where you want it, feed it into the ATEM Mini, and then use the keyer to remove the background. Cool. Okay, Alan says, for church streaming, would you suggest the ATEM Mini plus OBS or the ATEM Mini Pro? I guess it depends on what sort of things you want to stream. I've been having a pretty good luck with doing the chat this way, so I'm happy with this. If you wanted, again, like I was saying, more complicated chats or from other sources, or if you have like other fancier graphics that you want to overlay, which I know tends to happen a lot with the church streams, you may be better off doing those overlays in software in OBS or something, in which case you don't need the ATEM Mini Pro to do the encoding. So you can definitely get a lot more flexible overlays and stuff doing it in software in OBS. So that might be the better option, but it really depends on what you're overlaying. For just a relatively simple thing like what I've got here, you can actually see there's a mistake. Again, you can see how your name has my hand behind it because my key isn't quite right. So fiddling with that kind of stuff is a lot more tricky to get it right on the ATEM Mini. Whereas in OBS, it works completely differently. So it's a lot easier to do more complicated overlays. Okay, here's a question from Oxa Film. I want to simultaneously stream to YouTube and Facebook using the Mini Pro built-in streaming and something like the Epiphan Webcaster. How would you achieve this? I don't want to use a restreamer. Well, if you don't want to use a restreamer, first of all, I think it'd be fine to use a restreamer. It's not that complicated of a thing. But if you really don't want to for whatever reason, then you've basically just answered. I think you've answered your own question here. The ATEM Mini Pro can stream to one, and then you'd use the HDMI out to plug into like the Epiphan Webcaster, and that can stream to your other one. That does mean that you don't get multi-view because then the HDMI out is dedicated to the program feed. The other way to do it would be to dedicate a computer to do the second encoding, plug in the ATEM Mini Pro as a webcam into that computer, and then use any software. OBS would work just fine, and it would just be a full screen graphic of your webcam, nothing else in OBS, and you just hit go live, and it would stream to your second stream. And that would give you the multi-view out of the HDMI. Cool. So Serge says, is the ATEM Mini Pro really the only Blackmagic device that can directly live stream? I'm pretty sure that is the case. I'm pretty sure it's the first one that has a built-in H.264 encoder that talks over the internet. The web presenter is basically like a smaller version of the ATEM Mini. It's just a webcam device with 2 inputs. So not a lot of reason to get that anymore. It's also 720 max resolution, I think. And yeah, I don't think there's any others that have the built-in streaming hardware. Candlelight Production says, can multi-view output via USB? No. So the only thing that multi-view can be sent out through is the HDMI port. The USB and the Ethernet port are fixed as the program output. All right. Here's a question. Is there any way, I get this question a lot. Is there any way to record to a solid state drive or thumb drive or whatever, while also using the ATEM Mini Pro as a webcam? The answer to that is no. The USB port can do one or the other, but not both at the same time. And if you take a minute to think about it, it makes a lot of sense because when you plug in a USB drive, it expects to be able to be plugged into a computer or like a host. And then if you plug in a webcam, the webcam also expects to be plugged into a host device. And then if you want the ATEM Mini Pro to be a webcam, or the ATEM Mini to be a webcam, then it can't also host a USB drive. Like you can probably get things plugged in with a USB hub, but it's not going to do what you want it to do because like the things don't flow the right direction. So hopefully that makes sense. Media Mention says, hi, nice to see you. Nice to see you too. Thanks for joining. Oh, I just got to where I dropped the chat. Wow. Okay, there's a lot of chat going on because I just got to the part where I dropped in my link to the Mica spec. Lauren's Kitchen says, is there any way to delay the audio coming in from the mic input in the ATEM Mini Pro? I know as ATEM Mini couldn't. Do you think there would be a future firmware update to solve the problem? Right now, there is no option to add audio delay in the ATEM in either device. You have to add it externally, either by running the mic through a camera or an external audio delay device. And I'm really disappointed that there is no built-in audio delay feature. I feel like that was a pretty big oversight. As to whether it can be shipped with a firmware update, it completely depends on how much like extra memory they crammed into this thing before they shipped it. Because it requires a little bit of storage to buffer the audio for a frame or two. And if there isn't any storage in there, because this is not a computer, and if there isn't any storage available in there, they can't do it in a firmware update. If they did cram in a little bit of extra space to be able to store things, then they might be able to do it. So I'm holding out hope that they do ship it in a firmware update, because that would be fantastic, but I'm not super optimistic about it. Hisham says, how can you load images into the hyperdeck that works with the ATEM Mini? By images, I assume you mean video, because the hyperdeck is a video player. But check out my last week's live stream, because I did actually go through an example of that. One of the sort of annoying things about the hyperdeck, actually most video players, is that the frame rates and resolutions of all your media have to be the same. So the hyperdeck will not recognize, will not show you files if they don't match the resolutions of the other files. It's pretty picky. The garbage truck guy, yeah, he's just trying to make a guest appearance. Sebastian says, received my ATEM Mini Pro today. German online store, congrats. That's awesome. ATEM setup can find it on the network, but ATEM software control doesn't find it. That is a really strange one. If the ATEM setup can find it on the network, but the ATEM software control can't. I do remember I had a glitch with mine at my home network where it turned out that I had a network switch that was being a little bit weird. And it wasn't like, if I had plugged it into that network switch, nothing could find it. But if I plugged it directly into the other, like the farther down the chain, it worked fine. So maybe try swapping out network switches or Ethernet cables. But the fact that the ATEM setup app can find it on the network, that is definitely strange. So if you go through a couple of different switches and cables and nothing works, then do email Blackmagic support, because they do respond to that kind of stuff. All right. Russell answered, I had the same problem. I statically assigned the IP through the ATEM setup and was unable to control it through the ATEM software control. That's another good suggestion, is toggle between DHCP or or static IP and see if that helps. RTD says ATEM Mini Pro doesn't work with the portable monitor. It depends on the monitor. I've had actually mixed luck with external monitors on the ATEM Mini. So these ones I've got here are working fine. So I've got these are Dell 24-inch 1920 1080, which is not 4K, but I actually don't want 4K for this. I want monitors that are the same size as I'm broadcasting. These ones work fine. I have a little 11-inch monitor, which was great, except that the ATEM Mini couldn't talk to it. I don't know why. It was also 1920 1080. There's just something about the frame rate or resolution or something that it didn't like. And I have had fine luck with computer monitors. I've had completely fine luck with proper camera monitors, like little small 5 or 7-inch ones. Those all work 100%. And then the sort of that middle tier of the Raspberry Pi screens or portable displays, I haven't had much luck with those. There is one that I use at home, and although it only works at 60 hertz, that's the other part. If it's not working with a monitor, try changing the resolution or the frame rate. in the ATEM Mini to see if that makes it work. Because I have a monitor that only works with 60 hertz, but not 30, which is really annoying because I don't want to broadcast in 60. But anyway, yeah. Okay. Where was I? I don't want to, I don't want to get too lost in this. There's, MMA Beijing says, when you said 11 inches, there was a spark in the eyes. Yeah, I really like the small monitors. I like because like they're easy to travel with, and I actually had it like mounted above the camera, which was perfect. So right now, like I have to look over here to see my multi-view, which is not terrible. But and then this monitor I'm looking at is my computer closer to the camera. But I had the little 11-inch sitting above the camera. I tried this one above the camera, and it looks like I'm looking like into the sky. It's not good. Tim says, which model are your Dell monitors? Let me pull that up because there's like, it took me a while to find these. And there's like a million Dell monitors. And some of them are very, very close to each other. So let me go look up my purchase history and find that for you. Okay, so these are the Dell monitors. Cool. All right, where was I? I want to scroll back up. Oh, I completely missed Hector's super chat. Thank you so much, Hector. Sorry I missed that. And again, reminder, I'm actually donating all these super chats and matching the donation, and Okta is matching the donation. So every super chat is a 3x contribution to the organizations listed below. Hector says, huge fan of the channel. Thanks. Appreciate it. And my question is it possible to connect an iPod into the ATEM Mini Pro into one of the two mic inputs? Absolutely it is. And that's actually what I've got here. So the music, if you were here at the beginning, for the first 2 minutes, I was playing music off of this little iPod into the headphone, off the headphone jack into the ATEM Mini Pro. It works fine. These are great because they're really cheap and you can just load music onto them and then they just play forever. I will say the one sort of annoying thing is that the mic jacks on the ATEM Mini are kind of susceptible to interference because they're not proper balanced audio jacks. So there's like a ton of crap on this desk, as you can see, and there's a lot of power running through it. And when I have the USB power plugged into the iPod, there's a very faint buzz on the line. And I'm sure I could fix it if I dug into it and tried to rearrange things on this desk. But it was easier to just unplug the power and let it run off battery for this stream. And I've had that happen with other powered devices that I've run through the port as well. And that's the problem with the sort of unbalanced situation where if it was like an XLR or a quarter-inch, balanced quarter-inch, it would be able to eliminate those. Cool. So yeah, hopefully that answers that. Thanks. And I missed another super chat. Oh, it's because they're the same color, and that means my background doesn't change because it's the same color as before. Dave, thank you so much. And I'm going to change the background color so that I notice the next one. Can you please do some research for a future session on a bonded modem that works with the ATEM Mini Pro? Yeah, that's a great idea. It's a fantastic idea. I will definitely do that. Because I think it's a really good opportunity for streaming redundantly, because you never really want to just rely on one connection, even though I'm technically doing that right now. But I do know that I could switch over to my phone if I needed to, and only lose a couple of minutes of the stream. But yeah, redundancy. That's a good video idea, though. I will do that. Okay. Where was I? And, oh, Brian Parkinson also sent a super chat. I think that was when my background was teal. Sorry, I'm missing these. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Cool. And I'm going to switch my background color to pink so that I actually notice the next time it changes. All right. Scrolling back up to where I left off in the chat. Yeah, people are talking about the audio delay and refresh, and it should fix it. That's just a YouTube thing right now. And okay, John says, have you tried recording using just USB 3 drives? I've tried several with great specs, but the video glitches and isn't smooth. That's really weird. I have not encountered that problem. I'm actually recording this right now to a USB drive, just because I wanted to try and have a backup recording. So, that is, I haven't had a problem yet, but I will review this recording and see how it goes. I don't know what to tell you, unfortunately. All right, where was I? I keep losing my place in the chat. Oh, there we go. I saw that change this time. That's a nice way to alert myself of these. From David, love the channel. Your content's been super helpful for my own work. Please keep it up. Thank you so much, David. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for watching. And let me know if you have any more questions. Okay. Here I was. What audio delay hardware, not camera, do you think is best? So there's I think there's a whole bunch of different audio hardware that can do audio delay, and audio delay is like a relatively simple operation that you don't really need to worry about like the best one. So it's really more about the other factors that go into that decision. So how much does it cost? Do you need it to be portable? Do you need it to do other things? So I have the one that I recommend to people, and again, I will drop a link to this so that you know what I'm talking about. The one that I recommend to people is this Behringer. I don't know how to say it. It's not big, but it's also not small. It's just got like audio in, audio out. It's meant to like get rid of feedback from like in a live environment. But one of the things it also has is an audio delay feature in it. And you can just choose like a couple of like milliseconds on here and it'll add a delay. That's a good option if you only need to just insert an audio delay into your existing workflow. But like a whole bunch of mixers have audio delay features built in too. So like once you get into the digital mixer tier, and that can be a good option as well, because then you can actually do all your audio mixing on a physical control surface, which is nice. What else? There's the one I use at home is the Zoom F. I think it's the Zoom F4. Yes, that's the one. It's not cheap, I will warn you, but because it's doing a lot more than audio delay, right? But it's a great device, and it also supports adding audio delay to any of the mix that you're doing. So there's a whole bunch of different options, but again, it totally depends on what you need it to do. So like the Zoom can be powered by a battery, the Behringer can't. So if that's a consideration, again, like neither of those have like the large mixing interface. If you need that, go find a digital mixer that has the audio delay built in. But there are a bunch of options, which is nice. Okay. Dave says, does the Strata iPad software work very well? Any way to see the multi-view? So that's what I'm using here. This is the Strata macros app on my iPad, and I've got buttons for things like switching camera angles, so I can switch over to that angle, switch to the different inputs, but then I've also got, some of these are running macros. So I've got like the macro for showing the chat, hiding the chat. I can show this border, hide the border. And then I've got another page of macros for like when I close the show. That is all this app does. All it is buttons. It's just buttons that send commands to run macros on the device. It does not have a video feed or anything else. There isn't really a way to get a video feed off of the ATEM device other than the outputs that it's got. So you're not going to find an app that can pull out a video feed from the ATEM. But yeah, the software itself does work very well. Oh, someone's asking about the lights, about how the lights work. Yeah, so when it's a if this then that connection, so that's connected into my YouTube account, and it's watching the live stream, and then it recognizes the color of the super chat, and then sends that command to my lights, which are Philips Hue lights, which I like a lot. I've also got them set up on my computer, so I can, of course, change the color from my computer if I need to. I can also turn on my actual overhead lights, which look horrible in this. And I've got like smart outlets connected to the that backlight over there, and also this big one here. So these are just on little smart outlets. Candlelight says, can you comment on the need for redundant connectivity if you have a wired internet at a live event? Do you somehow implement redundant streams, bonded or otherwise? So doing bonded streams is expensive, and adding redundancy is expensive. And if you're doing that at a live event, like I would definitely charge a lot more to do that. If you're streaming over an event's Wi-Fi connection, like that's going to go wrong, guaranteed at some point, and I definitely don't recommend that. If you do get a wired connection from the event, it'll probably be fine. And but like I would make sure that your contract says like it's the client's responsibility to provide the internet connection, and it's their fault if it goes down. Or you could offer to charge a lot more for providing a bonded, redundant connection, where then you're bringing your own LTE connection or whatever. But everything I've done, I've used, let's see, I'm trying to think. I've done, the vast majority of the events I've done in person are me running a very long Ethernet wire into their network closet, and I just get a network connection from them. There was one I did that I streamed over my own cell phone data plan, because there wasn't a way to get an Ethernet wire in where we needed to. And I was streaming over LTE, and it did work. And I was not using a redundant connection, but that makes me a little bit uneasy now thinking back on that. So if I were to do a pure wireless connection, I would probably make sure to make it redundant. But if you have a wired connection to the venue, I wouldn't bend over backwards to make it redundant, especially if you can make sure it's their problem if something goes wrong. Okay. Okay. We are. Carter says, any idea if I can resize the camera input, like make it smaller to fill in the downstream key? So there's two keyers on the ATEM Mini and the Pro, upstream and downstream. Some of the fancier devices, the fancier ATEMs will have more than one of both. So they're a lot more flexible, but this has just one of each. The downstream keyer is like the last on the stack. So it's like, if you think of it in layers, you've got like your base video layer, and then at the very top of the stack is the downstream keyer. And then I just saw my background color change again. That's very distracting. Thanks. I think that's from John. Lots of great info, great causes. Thank you for that, John. So let me go back to the keyer discussion. So we've got your base video layer, upstream keyer, and then downstream keyer. Or maybe if you want to go the other way, so it's down. But whatever, it's like the last thing on the stack. The downstream keyer can be cropped, but it can't be scaled. So let me switch over to let me give you my multi-view situation again. So for example, what are you looking at? Yeah, okay. We're looking at my test ATEM Mini. So we can see on the right, there's that program out. If I were to load something into the downstream keyer, like for example, this with that gradient, and then turn it on, that's full screen. There's no option in here for scaling. There is mask. So if I want to, I can like crop crop the bottom, right? So I can like be like, okay, I want to remove that. I want to remove the top. I want to remove the sides or whatever, right? So you can like crop, but you can't scale it. That's a limit with the downstream. It's also only a Luma key or a premultiplied key. So Luma key means you can make the blacks transparent. And then premultiplied is where you get the nice transparency with this nice gradient down here. The upstream key is a lot more flexible. So if we go over to the upstream keyer, you've got, first of all, 4 different kinds of upstream keyers: Luma, Chroma, Pattern, or DVE. Luma being making the black transparent. Chroma means you can make any color transparent. And then DVE is where you can start doing scaling. So for example, I can do picture in picture by taking let's take my computer, and then it's as like 0.2, that's 20%. So if we turn that on, it's 20% up in the corner. And then you can move it around, and you can also resize it. You can, in addition to moving it and resizing it, you can also crop it. So if you wanted to crop some off the end, you can do that. And that's how, for example, I can do like, I can make it so that just the chat bit shows up. So get the idea there. And then you've got other options like adding a border, adding a shadow. Shadow doesn't really show up on my black background. And there's like animations as well. So all sorts of stuff with DVE. I haven't really used the pattern one at all. Chroma is where you can key out one of the colors. So right now, there we go. We're keying out green, but it's not quite the right green. So if we were to sample that green, then turn that on. Now that's better. So now you can see me peeking through the chat. And again, with chroma key, you can mask or scale or move those. So hopefully that answers that question. And let's take a look. Where was I in the chat? Yep, cool. Okay. I think there was a super chat down there I want to grab. Yes, from Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. And again, in case anybody who is just now joining, reminder that all the super chats, I'm actually donating the super chat and I'm matching the super chat, and my employer Okta is matching that for a 3x on top of your donation to all the organizations listed below. Andrew says, I'm wondering about your experience with longer HDMI cables and at what point I'll need to use SDI converters. Any recommendations for them? Yeah, totally. Okay, here's a couple things. So HDMI is really, really, really finicky. It's not a good protocol at all. And it is very much dependent on both ends and the cable. So this camera, for example, this is my GH5S over here. This thing has a full-size HDMI port. It's pretty solid. It can actually output over, I think I've tested a 20-foot cable and it has no problem. I have a small point-and-shoot camera and it cannot output a signal over the same cable length. Same cable, same length. It doesn't work. And it doesn't reach the ATEM Mini. If I try that camera with a shorter cable, it works fine. So it depends on the source device of like what it's putting out. Generally 20 or 30 feet is about all you're going to get with a plain HDMI cable if you have a good source. If you have a good camera as the source that you're sending. Then the other half of that is the receiving end. So the receiving device also, it'll matter as to whether it can receive a signal that's like weaker or stronger. But yeah, generally 20 to 30 feet is about the max of what you can get over HDMI. For longer than that, there's a really cool trick, which is running a HDMI signal over a fiber cable. And you can just buy these cables. They're fiber cables with HDMI ports on both ends. And that means it converts it into light, and then it sends that and decodes at the other end. Those I've heard, I haven't tried them myself. I have heard people have had good luck running those up to about 300 feet. So that is a nice way to very easily extend your HDMI cable length, because you don't need any other converters. with SDI is like solid. SDI is the way to go for sure, like for solid connections everywhere. However, one, the ATEM Mini Pro does not have SDI ports, and DSLRs usually don't until you get up into like the cinema camera range. Very expensive cameras. For those, you're gonna, for like if you don't have SDI port in your camera and your ATEM, then you'll need to convert to SDI and back, which is another device to buy and power. So I think my favorite one of those is, let me figure out the model number. So Blackmagic makes one, but Blackmagic's, I'm pretty sure they're just one way, so you can buy like HDMI SDI or SDI HDMI. But Decimator has one that is both. So it's a little thing, MDLX, Decimator MDLX, SDI to HDMI, and this one converts both ways. I think at the same time, although in this situation you only be using one direction, but it does mean that once you buy it, it's a lot more flexible in the future. So you can use it. You don't have to worry about which one you've got at both ends. You can decide that you are going to get now cameras with SDI outs, and then run two SDI cables to your ATEM Mini, and then convert two SDI to HDMI. Anyway, it's a lot more flexible, so I like that one. Cool. Okay. That is the question about longer HDMI cables. Anything else? Yeah, that's all I can think of for that. Let me try to get back. Nasser says, the white line at the bottom of the screen when you bring the chat annoys me. Is it possible to mask it? Yeah, sure. Why don't we just do that? Why don't we just go through that exercise right now? Okay, so let me show you what I've got and why this is happening. Let me go to, can I do this? I can't see it. That's the problem. Okay, let me go back to the real ATEM, the live one. And when I click, oh, this is gonna, I have to hide myself. Hold on. Sorry. When I click show chat, see how the software now like reconfigured itself? So now we're on the Luma key with the ATEM as the fill source, which is my fourth input over here. And here's my mask. So what I need to do is, I think I need to bring up the bottom, but I can't see it here. So you're gonna have to tell me if it's right. I guess if I maybe like show my slide over my, no, I can't tell. Okay. Oh, I can just move it down. Maybe if I just scoot the whole thing down. There we go. That'll do it. Okay. Where do I have to go? So it's 1, 2, 3, one more. That should do it. 11.2. Okay. But I can't tell if it worked because the little gray border around the program out is actually covering it up for me. So, oops, sorry. If hide chat, back to picture in picture, show myself in the corner. It worked. People are saying it worked. Okay. So what I have to do then is, okay, yeah, it was 11.2. So I lost that setting because I just switched off and it wasn't saved in my macro. So now I have to go into my macro and actually properly save that. And I want to do that because if I don't do it right now, I'm going to forget and not put it back and then load this up when I start the show next week and it'll be back. So if I go show chat, here is my show chat macro. DVE fly position, fly key Y. 11.1 had the line, 11.2 was just low enough that it hid the line. Save that, and I will go and actually now restore this in here so that, okay, it should be working. Now, let's try it. Main camera, and show chat. Oh, crap. Okay, switch my ATEM to the right input. This is the problem with stacking ATEMs, is it gets really confusing. And I don't, actually I just realized something. If I actually switch to using the Stream Deck as a controller, I can actually have one button do things on 2 different ATEMs. Because right now this iPad is only talking to one of the ATEMs. And the problem is I keep having to switch to show input 3 on the second ATEM okay, anyway, I'm going to set that up next time. Show chat. Hopefully it's gone. Let me know if that line is now there. And I'm only a few seconds ahead of you, so I should be seeing the chat messages confirming that in a second. Gone. Okay, cool. Great. Thanks for that. Well, thanks for helping me debug my live stream. Great. Cool. Thanks for that. Okay. Candlelight. If I have not exceeded my question limit, have you tried implementing foot pedals or other setup to help shoot and switch at the same time? I've thought about doing this and I don't have anything myself. Foot pedals are a really cool idea. I should actually I would love to do that because that would be a lot easier than having to figure out where the buttons are. I would at least like to have just like a 2-camera switch or something. Those are all going to be probably MIDI devices. And that means that I would have to run through the companion app to convert it to an ATEM command. So that's something I want to look at setting up, but I haven't ever bought a foot pedal before. I would actually like recommendations from people if they have an idea for a good foot pedal. Because yeah, I've never looked into that market before. All right. People are answering each other's questions in the chat. That's awesome. Can you make a tutorial about the hue light? Yeah, I could. That'd be fun. Another good video idea. Again, these comments I'm actually showing using a script that's running in my browser. So a couple weeks back, I did a whole walkthrough of that. So go take a look at that if you're interested. Okay. David says, is it possible to show camera picture-in-picture and the PowerPoint side by side? For example, quarter horizontal is the camera and 3/4 is the presentation software picture. The answer is yes, and the answer is no, but yes. Let me see if I got that right. There is no way to do this in the ATEM Mini itself by itself. And the reason is because when I was demonstrating going through the key settings, there's only one upstream keyer, and the only thing that can resize and move images is the upstream keyer. So in order to get your small presenter video, like talking head, next to a smaller version of the slides, you would need 2 of those. And there aren't 2 on the ATEM Mini. The Television Studio, the next model up, the $1,000 one, also can't even do that. I think they call it Super Source. So if you find a Blackmagic switcher, an ATEM switcher with Super Source, that can do it. But those are very expensive. But there is a way around it because you need to be able to scale too, but doesn't have to be done in the same device. So you can use 2 ATEM Minis to do that side by side. And I'm trying to think if I can do that right now. I think I can. I think I have things set up right because I've got my camera going into both ATEMs. So if I use this camera in the second ATEM, let me switch over to show you, okay, get rid of the chat. I'm going to show you the multi-view. So in my second ATEM, I don't have the way to show you my computer and the multi-view. That's what's missing. I need some rewiring here. So if I'm in my test one, okay. I want to switch. I want to get my program output that you're seeing up here to just sort of shrink and move this off to the side. So I'm actually going to put black in the background and then use the DVE to fill in my main camera. And then we're going to not mask it, we're going to move it. So I can move myself over here over there. See how I'm also now smaller? And let me get a crop in here as well. So I can, instead of cropping the bottom, I'm going to crop the left and the right so that I'm like taking up less room. Okay, so that's like decent crop. Give myself a little wiggle room in case I'm wandering when I'm talking. Move myself over there. Okay, so that means what we're looking at here is the HDMI out of this ATEM is now sending this graphic. That makes sense? So the actually the background is not going to work in black because I'm wearing black. I need to make that a color. So I can use the color generator. Let's do orange because there is no orange in my shot. So the so what we're looking at now is the program out of the second of my second ATEM Mini is outputting this graphic. So if I switch now back to like if I switch to the program feed, this is what it looks like. So this is an input into my other ATEM Mini, and I don't have the ability to show you the multi-view of that one because I don't have to loop back to itself. But I can show you the computer that I'm using to edit the ATEM Mini. So I'm now talking to the live ATEM Mini, and what I should be able to do is now a similar thing where I want to shrink this computer screen over to make room for the little graphic here. And I'm gonna get rid of that border because that is a hideous color combination. And then I'm gonna key out where was I? That one. I want to chroma sample the orange. And there, okay, so now I'm keyed out, right? And I can also, again, resize myself and move myself around. You can see it's not quite perfect, not a very good key. I can probably improve that. Oh, I used orange, which is my face. That was probably not the smartest decision there. But if I tighten it up a little bit, it should get a little better. Okay, you would spend a lot more time on this to make it look like a good key, but you get the idea. Okay, which means then I can show a color in the background and then use the oh, sorry, I did this wrong. I don't want to key myself. I want to use the downstream keyer instead of the upstream keyer. Okay, I did this wrong. Hang on, back up. I'm going to bring in, because I can't use this ATEM Mini to scale that one, which is why we scaled it elsewhere. I'm using the downstream keyer to bring the ATEM in, not as a multiplied key, and now we should see it over there. Wow. That's cool. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. Okay. That's a little better. There we go. So I just have to adjust that key, right? Okay. So now we're just looking at the other ATEM. I can mask this. So I can mask, for example, get rid of that, right? So like crop that a little bit. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get rid of the, oh, I can get rid of the top and the bottom too. There we go. Good enough. Okay. Now I'm not scaling that input anymore, right? That's what the other ATEM is sending. Out of the blue, we're in an ATEM 80s music video, yeah. Which means I can now use the background color. Let's do that. And now I can use my upstream keyer to bring in the computer screen. And we're going to do that by, sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm using the DVE key on the upstream keyer. You'll see it in a second. There it is. And now I can resize and position this one to get that side-by-side view. Okay, there we go. And then you just have to choose what to put in the background. So you can either put a solid color in the background, you can put something from your media player in the background. So you can put like your conference logo. You could even use another HDMI input in the background. Like now we can see my desk. So yeah, that's really distracting. Sorry. There, it's a little better. So this is the side-by-side view that you can get, but you have to use a second ATEM Mini to do one of the scaling, and then you can just crop it instead of scale. So hopefully that makes sense. I should actually probably do a proper tutorial because this was, I'm sure, very difficult to watch because you could only see some of what I was doing on the computer. But let me know, David, if that answers it. Cool. All right. We're just like cruising along here. It's 11:20 and I just blew right past the top of the hour mark. But I'm okay with that. All right, let's go back and take a look at the chat. And we were here. Oops. What's going on? Picture in picture is still okay. There we go. So yeah, it's a bit of a hack to get that to work. I haven't found anything remotely close to this price point that can do anything similar though, so it's not the worst idea. Like I said, the Blackmagic switchers that do this properly are very, very expensive. And then the other way to do this is in some software-based switchers. So OBS, of course, can do it no problem, but there's a couple of other software switchers that can do it. Here's a good point. Playing music from an iPod. If you are live streaming to Facebook, if their algorithm hears copywritten material, they will just mute your audio entirely. Yeah, and if you're doing that to YouTube, YouTube will flag it, possibly to take it down. Generally, don't play copyrighted music in your live streams. That's the rule. Not a good idea at all. The really unfortunate part is that even if you do have a proper license, like from the artist to be able to use their music, like I actually know a band and they sent me a pile of MP3s and they were like, you can use this for this live stream. I had their permission, but the whole system didn't understand that, which means it still got flagged. And when it's a live stream, you can't appeal it, right? Because you're live. So the best thing to do is to use music that is not owned by labels that are part of the copyright flagging program on these content ID on YouTube. I don't know what Facebook's is called. So there's a whole bunch of people who write music for this. So there's Creative Commons. People will just license their music Creative Commons and then they won't submit it to the content ID programs. That's a great resource. I've written a couple of songs, which I use in my live stream so that I know that it's okay. If you're interested in using some of them yourself, a couple of the ones that you were hearing at the beginning were those. I did a project a couple of years ago where I wrote 100 different very short things for intros and podcasts. So take a look at that if you want. These are all Creative Commons. Feel free to just use them in your streams. I would appreciate if you let me know, but whatever. They're all a minute long or so they're not. They're good for intros and stuff. There's a whole different range of styles in here. There's also let me see. I didn't prep this question, so I don't have these links handy. What's his name? I'm totally blanking on. There's the guy who has a huge library of Creative Commons music. Somebody will remember and mention his name, I'm sure. His stuff is great, and he has a lot of different varieties as well. There's also then music licensing platforms where you can properly license and actually get a license to use songs that then artists actually get paid for, which is nice. So that is cool. I'm trying to find the link to the one. Here we go. So, okay, this is a referral link for Soundstripe. I use Soundstripe in a lot of my videos. I'm gonna drop this link in the chat. This is looks like 20% off your first payment when you sign up using that. But I've been using them in my videos for a while now, which is great. All right, so Candlelight says on copyright music, if I stream a private recital, what service would not cause copyright issues? Recital, I'm assuming you mean that there are performers performing songs that are songs that they did not write. That is probably won't get flagged by any of them because the content ID works on matching the actual like raw recording. It probably won't get flagged. However, it's still not legal. You still need a license from the artist, from the actual composer, to perform music. And if you are, I think there's like an exception for like private gatherings or something, which is what recitals normally fall under. But if you're broadcasting it, that's not really private anymore. So you do need a license for that. That's why like, bands that are playing cover songs have to get permissions from the artist to perform that. But it probably won't get flagged by Content ID because it's a new interpretation of the song. Candlelight Production says a live dance recital. Oh yeah, well if you're playing a recording of another song, then there's no way around that, and you definitely like should properly license the song. Yeah, I think someone's saying that Twitch is the most forgiving streaming platform. I definitely have seen Twitch streams with music on it that is suspiciously mainstream. So, but yeah, like you shouldn't broadcast copyrighted music. Okay. Yeah, and the content ID is not perfect, so sometimes things do get flagged even though they shouldn't have been. Where was I in the chat? Wow. I'm way behind. All right. John says, can the RTMP Ethernet port on Mini Pro be used via Caster to connect to Zoom? I'm not familiar with Caster. So you want to use USB-C to record and then also connect it to Zoom. I'm not familiar with Caster, but what you would need a program to do is be able to accept the RTMP stream from the ATEM Mini and then expose it as a webcam on your computer. I can imagine that software could exist. You would have to go into the streaming.xml file and add it as a custom RTMP endpoint, of course, using the IP address of your computer. So yeah, that would definitely work. You will almost certainly get some amount of latency. So keep that in mind. Like, I don't really know what the actual latency is of the Ethernet streaming because I'm always just pushing up to YouTube. And the latency will also depend on the receiving end of that. So like how much it buffers before it decides to actually like commit that data. So yeah, I would probably look for a different option than trying to go through these hoops to make this work. Sam says, in considering Strata macros and the Elgato Stream Deck mobile, which works better with ATEM Mini Pro? The reason I like Strata macros, which is this iPad app that I'm using, is because the software runs on this iPad, and this iPad talks over the network to the ATEM Mini Pro, which means I do not need a computer in the middle to make this work. I could actually stream this entirely without my computer on because the ATEM Mini Pro is encoding to the internet, and this is talking to it directly over the network. I like that because it means fewer things in the way. The Stream Deck is a USB device, and it plugs into a computer, and it sends messages to the computer, which the computer then has special software called Companion to receive those button presses and convert them into ATEM commands, which means your computer does need to be in the middle of that flow in order to use the Stream Deck. Stream Deck Mobile, I'm pretty sure, I've never actually used Stream Deck Mobile with the ATEM, but I'm pretty sure it's just like a wireless interface to the computer. So it still goes through the computer like that. I don't think it's actually running on the phone. So I like the stability of Strata macros talking directly to the ATEM. However, as you can see, I'm pushing the limits of it because I have two ATEM minis here and it can only talk to one at a time. If I was using the Stream Deck, I could make a button on the Stream Deck that sent a command to both because it's going through the computer. And then I can finally get I can stop messing up when I bring up the chat. So that's the trade-offs. Hopefully that makes sense. I think like most things, the answer is it depends, and depends on your criteria and what your situation is. Okay, Robert says, can the Ethernet streaming multicast or is it single cast only? Yeah, it's only one encoder. It can only stream to one location. So if you do want to broadcast to multiple places, you will need to use something that can rebroadcast that, like restream. Do any of the Blackmagic switchers have 3 to 4 aux outputs? Probably. They have a lot of really powerful switchers. However, they get really expensive very quickly. So yeah, I would just take a look at the ATEM, Blackmagic ATEM webpage. They have good diagrams on there that show the ports on the back very clearly. Can we use video transitions between cameras on the ATEM Mini Pro? Is it possible? I actually don't think it is. Let me check. Transitions. DVE. I guess you can. No, I guess you can. I've never actually done it. So if I show you my computer here, let me get rid of that. Go over here. There we go. So under the let me get rid of that. Under the transitions menu, if you go to DVE, that's gonna like slide this. Then you can slide it with media from something else. So let me queue up my. So if we switch from this camera to this angle to what I'm looking at now is the preview is just like the full shot. It should, when I fade, oh, I have to do that. Why can't I do that? Oh, I can't use, right, I can't. Okay, the limit is you can't, there's only one DVE. There's only one like thing in there. And right now it's being used for the picture-in-picture. So if I turn that off and I switch to like the wide angle view, I can use the DVE. Come on. Can I not use the DVE? No. Why can't I do that? Nope. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, because I had the key on the you can't see it. It's up there. I had the DVE queued up. So now that the DVE is not doing anything, I can use it in the transition so that when I do the wipe, it'll wipe through with my graphic. Okay, so I can do, I would obviously need to queue that up better. That is using the fill source of on my in the transition thing. The fill source is the media player. If you use one of the video sources as the fill source, getting really meta here. For example, I can use the wide camera as the fill source. So if I go, let me use the computer as the fill source. So my computer screen is now the fill source. Now I'm sliding through with the computer screen. And you can see the little bar is moving. That's because my computer screen is live. If you can then use the hyperdeck to queue up a video clip so that it starts playing right when you hit transition, you could then use a video during the transition. It's not perfect. As you can see, it'll take a little bit of fiddling to get that to work well, but it could work. So I'll reset back to the chat version of this. Cool. Oh man, what did I do wrong? Okay. I've got that. I can't write. There we go. Okay. Getting some other questions, making sure I'm not doing anything stupid in the chat, like killing my audio. I always get worried when I'm fiddling with too many of these buttons on the table. Jason says, are you noticing a delay when using it as a webcam? What can be done? I have noticed some delays. So the problems that I've seen are using underpowered computers or after the computer sort of gets tired after a while. What I've got here is this is a 13-inch MacBook Pro, pretty new. However, every now and then I do see like a bit of a lag in the video feed, and then it catches up. And this is in Zoom even. And I'm pretty sure that a faster computer would have no problem with that. On this little 12-inch, it can't handle it at all. It just does not work at all. So that's really unfortunate. The other reasons you might see the delay is the USB hub, using a USB hub. So the best thing to do is plug it in directly via a USB-C cable to your computer on its own port, not running it through a hub. It takes a very expensive hub to be able to successfully actually use a hub. A lot of the hubs are cheaply made and cut corners, and they can't actually share that much data with that many devices. Or if you have like something else plugged into the hub, like a microphone, that can really cause some conflicts, and that can cause some of the delays. So shortest connection between the ATEM Mini and the computer, shortest cable possible, and a fast computer, and then it's usually fine. By the way, for anybody who's just joining us, if you do send me a super chat, I am matching the donations, and my employer is matching those donations. So we are donating to these organizations down at the bottom. So please feel free, if you are looking for a way to show some support of these organizations right now, please do feel free to chip in a few bucks. Or if you don't want to go through the super chat method, feel free to just donate directly and just send a screenshot to me on Twitter, and I will also match those. All right. Carlos says, great show, thanks. How do you do live coding? Do you mirror your screen so you can see what you are typing in your own computer? Yeah, so let me talk about what I've got set up here, because this is actually set up for exactly that. What you're looking at here is this screen is plugged into this computer, and then this is the ATEM Mini screen. So I can see what's going on the stream. I can see all the different camera angles, and then that's my computer. And then my computer is also mirrored into the ATEM Mini. And the way I did that was with I should have prepped this link. I found a USB-C dongle thingy which has 2 HDMI outs, and the limit is the deal is with a Mac, the Mac can't output 2 video feeds over a single Thunderbolt port without special drivers. But that's actually what I want. So there's 2 HDMI ports on that sending the same signal, but the computer sees it as one external screen. So if I go into my display settings, it thinks there's only one screen plugged in, but it's actually sending it to 2 places. The big monitor here, and also as an input into the ATEM. So that way I can use the multi-view. I can see what I'm sending out to the stream or Zoom or whatever it is, but then I get my actual computer screen over here, so I can actually see what I'm typing without worrying about like whether my face is covering up the corner because I'm doing picture-in-picture or something. And that's actually been working out really well. And I finally got this set up in a way that I like for that. Yeah, cool. Christian says, thanks for the videos, super chat. Thank you so much for watching, and really appreciate it. All right. We are coming up, we're getting dangerously close to 2 hours, which is the longest I've ever gone. I think I'm going to just go like for 5 more minutes and try to see if I can get through some of these other questions, and try to come in at under 2 hours, because that's a long stream. Okay. Chris says, fiber HDMI, a bunch of 150 footers from PureLink. They worked great. Awesome. Okay. Take a look at that. I will take a look at those. I don't have, this space is not big, as you can see, so I don't have a use for a long one right now. But I am very curious to try that once I actually do need a longer HDMI cable. Robert says, cable length is affected by wire gauge of the individual conductors. Typically, this is 28. Two larger sizes are 24 and 22. The drawback is thicker cables. Makes complete sense. Yeah, I've actually got this, like, where is it? It's the one that's running into the little HDMI player. This one is so thin, and I love it because it's like super bendy, and I don't have to, like, I can just, toss it over there. But it's also like only a foot long, but it's great for that. I don't like the tough ones that are short. But yeah, if you want longer ones, that's not going to work. So, cool. Candlelight says, where's that beautiful white chat line? I really miss it. Okay. I came here to watch the white line. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I got rid of it. Sorry. Okay. Oh yeah, the Roland VO2 HD is a 2-camera switcher that has a foot pedal. That's right. This is a cool switcher. It's 2 inputs, so it's just back and forth. I think it also does green screen and picture-in-picture with the 2 inputs, which is cool. But it's way more limiting compared to ATEM Mini for sure. But it does have a pedal switcher, which is really nice, and it'll just like ships with one, so that's cool. Can you freeze a picture-in-picture setting when switching to another channel and back? When I have the picture-in-picture on channel 1 and switch to channel 2, the picture-in-picture is gone. Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do this. As you can see, I'm doing that kind of here. The way I've got it set up right now is I'm using macros. So I'm not using the buttons on the ATEM Mini itself. I'm using macros, which will do things like will switch an input and then like scale and get the position of the picture-in-picture just the way I want it, which is how this chat is showing up, for example. And then, so if I go and switch over to my other view of the computer with a picture-in-picture of myself, or a picture-in-picture of the other ATEM, that was like a whole reconfiguration, right? Of like what you're seeing, and that's because it's done with macros. So that's one way to do it. The other way is there's a setting. Let me show you let me do this. Show you the software control. What is going? Okay, I've got to figure out what that is. The other thing is, let's go do it on that test one. In the settings, no, in the setup app. It's always confusing why there's 2 different places for these things. In the setup app, one of the settings is this: picture-in-picture keyer, drop with transition or stay on with transition. If you have drop with transition set, then we're going to look at, I'm going to show you the multi-view now. So drop with transition is set, which means when I go from, if I'm using the buttons, let's see. I want to show you what I'm looking at the table. Okay. So if I use the buttons on the Mini to switch, take a look at the multi-view, right? And if I've got picture-in-picture on, why didn't that stay on? I was supposed to stay on with transition. Did I just change it? Oh yeah, because I changed it to drop with transition. If I change, it's been a long morning. Okay, we're almost done. If I change it to stay on with transition, then with the picture-in-picture on, and I switch inputs, now it's staying. That makes sense? Okay. So that is a setting to look for, which is sort of the easy way to do that. Otherwise, the macros are a great way to get way more control over what you're sending out on the chat. Okay. Let's go back over to the chat. White Dragon Miniature says, what off-camera shotgun microphone do you recommend for a live stream? I actually really like the one I'm using right now, which is this is plugged in directly to my camera, and it's actually not powered, which is one of the reasons I like it, because it's one less thing to charge and worry about keeping powered. This is the Movo VXR10. It's a tiny little thing, and it is, let's see, I can just show it to you. It's up there. So I have the pink one. They make it in black also. And it's just sitting right up off camera. And I like this one a lot. It has a good sound, and it's just a 1/8 inch cable running into the camera. All right. Couple more questions, but we're about ready to wrap up. Again, if you are curious about like what I'm using for the chat, I have a previous video on that. Go take a look at my channel. And yeah. Oh yeah. We tried using the Twitter API for bringing in tweets. That would totally work. I could just pull data from Twitter instead. The way I've got it here would not work because I'm using like just the YouTube webpage. But John Barker from Here to Record is working on building this functionality natively into H2R Graphics, his app for doing graphics and live streams. And that would be then easier to extend that to use Twitter. So definitely a good option. There's also plenty of other external apps that can do that, like Ecamm Live, I'm pretty sure can do it. But yeah, cool. Okay. I think we are going to call it a day. Oh, I just saw from Candlelight Productions. I can't show it on the chat because I don't handle super stickers apparently in this little hack I've done. But Candlelight Productions, thank you for the donation. Again, all this is being donated and I am matching it and my employer is matching it, so that that $20 is now $60 donated to these organizations. Really appreciate it. And yeah, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. I really appreciate everybody joining today. Hopefully you had a good time. Hopefully got some questions answered. I know this is a lot of info, but it's a lot to go back through and watch later as well. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully you, do subscribe. I'm working on more videos like this. I'm gonna take these suggestions for new video ideas, do those and do some of those as well in the future. So, yeah, thanks all for joining. Let's, call it a day. Thanks.